Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today for our epic webinar on how to have an epic hour of code. Really thank you for taking the time today, taking an hour out of your busy schedule as Hour of Code is coming up, and we have a great, wonderful webinar for you guys today. And of course, before we get started, there is always some housekeeping to do. So if you are having any difficulties, audio, visual, write a question in the questions tab of your control panel, and we will have somebody respond to you as quickly as possible. There's also the good old-fashioned trick of troubleshooting, which is starting the panel over, or starting the control panel over. So if all else fails, try that. But if that doesn't work, don't worry. We will be recording this today, and we will be sending the video of the webinar to everybody after this. So don't worry if you miss a slide, if you have to step away, or if something's not working, we will take care of it for you, and we will send it to you afterward. And also, if you are having some difficulty, we have all of the presenter slides available for you in the handout section. We have the PowerPoint decks, which you can download at your convenience. They're also chock full of really good links and tips and resources. So they're a great thing to have on hand if you want to follow up with some of the tips and ideas that you hear today. So I highly recommend checking out the handout section where you can download today's slide decks. One other thing is that we will be giving away 2 littleBits code kits at the very end of the webinar today. So stick around for the end, and you might be a lucky winner today. So with that, I would like to add one more thing, is if you are on Twitter, and I'm sure a lot of you are, please follow littleBits, Code.org, Scratch Ed Team, John Samuelson, and Kiki versus IT to catch up with some of our presenters today and some of the supporting organizations. Yeah, I know a lot of you are on Twitter and are sharing learnings and sharing ideas, and the folks here today are also doing the same thing. So I highly recommend catching up with the presenters today on Twitter. So with that, I would like to introduce our panelists today. We have Kiki Protzman. Kiki is an educator, author, and vibrant YouTube personality. She is the Curriculum Development Manager at Code.org and a former computer science instructor at the University of Oregon. She's a member of Mensa and a past chair of Women in Computer Science. As a champion for responsible computing and equity in both CS employment and education, Kiki works with many organizations to improve the experience of girls and women in STEM. She currently sits on the advisory board for Wonder Workshop Robotics, while also playing an advisory role in many STEM grant projects. And she is the program manager for Code.org and representing Code.org today. Next, we have Laura Peters. She is the project manager for Dr. Karen Brennan's Creative Computing Lab at the Harvard Graduate School of Education. The lab's mission is to democratize access to computational creation by supporting K-12 educators. Laura and her colleague Alexa manage the Scratch Ed online community, support the growing network of Scratch Ed meetup locations, develop resources for educators, and investigate ways in which learning environments influence young people's development as computational creators. And last, but certainly not least today, we have John Samuelson. He is the creator of the Techlandia podcast. He has been an educator for over 20 years and currently works as an innovation strategist for the Beaverton School District in Oregon. John has presented and keynoted at conferences around the United States, sharing his love of learning and educational technology, constantly striving to learn more and share ideas with educators. We have some great folks here for you guys today, so be sure to get your questions in on the question section of the control panel. We'll be leaving about 10 minutes at the end today for them to answer some of your questions. And really, I highly encourage you to pick their brains because these are the experts, folks. So before we get started, I wanted to set the scene a little bit. My name is Christine Leonard. I'm the education manager at littleBits Education, and want to talk about what we see in today and why we thought this would be a useful webinar, useful tool for all of you listening today. We see high-tech use and low-tech understanding amongst youth. I don't need to tell you that kids have access to a mind-blowing array of tech, of hardware, of devices. We have computers in our pockets and in our watches, but we don't really understand how they work. And I include adults in this one too. we use hardware and tech every day, but we don't understand how it works. And I think most of you would agree that that's probably not acceptable. Coding in particular has a high perceived barrier to entry. For some reason, we think that if you're a coder, you look a certain way, you do certain things, you have certain interests, and that it may not be accessible to everybody. The supporting point on that is girls, students of color, and low-income students have persistent achievement gaps in STEM, and the jobs of tomorrow are going to require creativity and innovation, as well as coding skills. This is one of our favorite quotes here at littleBits, and I think the folks at Scratch and Code.org would agree. Every maker of video games knows something that the makers of curriculum don't seem to understand. You'll never see a video game being advertised as being easy. Kids who don't like school will tell you it's not because it's too hard, it's because it's boring. So with that wonderful note, I am going to pass it off to Kiki, and I can assure you that today's webinar is definitely not going to be boring. So with that, I'm going to give the control over to Kiki, and she will kick us off.
Thank you very much. I am waiting for the little box that tells me that I get to take control here. And let's see. There we go. I'll just present my slides. Awesome. Hi, everybody. I am so glad that you came to join us today. I'm really happy to have you here. It's a busy time. As you know, we're headed into the most wonderful time of the year. And for that, it is Hour of Code. Hour of Code, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, is an initiative that was originally brought to you by Code.org, and they decided that they wanted to do something special for CS Education Week, which happens every year, the second week in December. And Hour of Code was intended to get people to try just 1 hour. Computer science has a reputation of being boring and difficult, and some people feel like they've missed the boat. So the idea behind Hour of Code was just to get people to try it, to just try 1 hour so that they could kind of shatter some of those perceptions. And we could get teachers to realize they could teach it. We could get students to realize they want to take it. We could get parents to realize that this was something that was going to be vital to their students' education. So this came out of a place of just trying an hour, and it's leading to a place where we have literally hundreds of millions of sign-ons for Hour of Code, of people coming in, trying their hour, and then many progressing on, which really was the ultimate goal of Hour of Code in the first place. So why Hour of Code? I could go into this for its own hour, but I won't. I'm sure if you're here, you already understand that computer science is becoming more and more important in today's world. And it is true that computing jobs are the #1 source of new wages, especially in America, and they will continue to be for a very long time. In fact, way back when I started in this space, they were projecting that in 2018, we would have twice as many jobs available as we had graduates who were graduating with a degree in computer science. And that certainly has become true. You can see that at any one given time right now, there are approximately 500,000 job openings and only 43,000 recent graduates in computer science. In fact, it's been said that for the average job, you might post 1 job and get 30 qualified applicants. For a computer science job, you would have 3 jobs for every 1 qualified applicant. So it is certainly a place of economic growth, and that's a truth, but it's not the main reason that we're doing this. So this is Malala and her quote, "Every girl deserves to take part in creating the technology that will change our world and change who runs it." And the truth of that statement is that really everyone deserves to take part in this. We have a world right now where people are self-selecting into being able to create technology, and they are taking these classes that are geared to be very hard. In fact, many universities have what they call weed out classes, and they will intentionally try and get people to drop the major early so that only those people who have been primed go on and become successful. And then those are the people that have access to those jobs that I was telling you about. And those are the people that are making money. But the truth is that everybody, girl, boy, someone who loves tech, someone who loves sports, it doesn't matter who you are, you have the right to be prepared to thrive in that market. And you have the right to be prepared to thrive in all of the other jobs that are coming out that are not tech jobs, but they require the use of technology and the creation of new things, whether it be web pages, whether it be programs, or whether it even be analyzing data. And if we're not teaching people appropriately, if we're not preparing students appropriately, we will never have that equity in life. And unfortunately for us, that means that the weight of this education falls squarely on elementary school. And the reason that is true is because even though most high schools let you choose electives and many middle schools let you choose electives, elementary school is the age when students are all placed in the same subjects. So a classroom in elementary school more accurately reflects the demographic of the overall community. So that means that if you are teaching children computer science in middle school, you are teaching it to every demographic equally. That also means that students are being prepared for the harder classes later in life, and they have a better shot at actually believing that they can do this, being prepared to do this, and then surviving that harsh atmosphere once they get to university. Or in some cases, even finding this as a passion and going out into the job market and being successful without that extra investment. So this is a passion project of mine, and it's not a passion project because I'm trying to help Google get employees. It's a passion project because we need more thinkers. We need more problem solvers. And computer science is a way to do that. Hour of Code is a way to initiate that. So, as I don't know if you guys are all as worked up as I am, my heart rate is going, but that tends to happen when I start talking about it. So now hopefully you guys are all saying, how do I start? Okay, what do I need to do? At code.org with Hour of Code, this is one of the things that we've tried to make really, really easy. And beginning last year, we introduced this website where you can go and actually filter so that you can find the thing that's right for you and well received for your grade. So if you go to the hourofcode.com and you click that you want to find an activity, you'll be taken to this web page. And the first thing that you will see is the highest rated activities across the board. These activities have been attempted, they've been graded, I guess, by third parties. And those third parties have given us tallies so that we know where each thing gets ranked on the web page. From there, you can filter to pre-reader, grades 2 to 5, 6 to 8, 9 plus, etc. for maturity level. But then on the side, you can also filter for the technology that you have available, the different topics where you're trying to sneak this stuff in, whether it's a self-led tutorial or a lesson plan that a teacher teaches. You can choose length, you can choose whether you want something for beginners, which you can see up there to the top right, something that's for people who've never done this before at all, or something that's for people who are a little more comfortable because maybe you have shown them some of this stuff before in class. So the next thing I want to talk about is hosting an Hour of Code event. Having an Hour of Code is one thing, and it is wonderful. But when you can share the passion that you're creating with more than just your classroom, when you can get it out to the community, it offers a lot of opportunities. So if you are deciding that you want to do something more, the first piece of advice I have is to do what makes you comfortable. So you don't have to go all out and make it a big statewide initiative if you know that it's going to put a lot of stress on you and the experience won't be its best. Make sure that you are focusing on the level that you enjoy and then make it happen at that level. If you want to do it with your classroom and have a little printout that the kids then get to take home to their parents and pass it on, that is enough. Along with that, know that if you are going to, for certain, run an Hour of Code event, you can go to the Hour of Code website and you can take their pledge. And by taking their pledge, you let them know that you'll be doing this in your school, and they will follow up with you to get some more information and make sure that you're put on our map. There are also posters and various things available for your Hour of Code party. In doing this, you can also use some of our pre-created resources. And if you go to Hour of Code if you go to Hour of Code and choose promote, that way it's the correct promote for your country, then there are all sorts of resources. There are letters that you can write. There are posters you can download. There are stickers you can download for your class. The udemy.com Hour of Code, that has some tips and tricks for hosting an Hour of Code, and it has a little kind of in a box, and that is free, even though the rest of the site is not necessarily free. And then there's this article on Programming Librarian about people who did Hour of Code in their schools and how they did it and what they learned. And so you can go read all that. And then the thing that I really like to do, I like to combine it with a fundraiser. So when I do this in my hometown, I go to one of the pizza places that has 50% donation for everybody who buys pizza with the flyer that night. And I pass them all out at the schools, and then I set up a little bank of laptops at the pizza place, and I bring people in. I let them buy pizza, which donates to the school, and then they come in and they try their Hour of Code, or they watch their kids try an Hour of Code, or they watch their kids present what they made doing an Hour of Code in class. It's a really good way to kind of combine this Hour of Code with presenting what kids did with getting word out among the community. It's definitely a great tip for anybody who's already familiar with running fundraisers. And finally, invite the community. So the fundraiser is one way of doing that, but also we've had huge success getting governors, mayors, superintendents, all sorts of other people to come watch this in the classroom, or even better, to be taught by another student in the classroom. It is a lot of fun when you get someone important to your community, even a news anchor, a DJ on the radio, when you get somebody to come to your classroom and participate in this event and your students get to host it, it is a whole different experience for them, and it helps them understand how life-changing these experiences can be. And then finally, because Hour of Code was never meant to be only an hour, it was meant to inspire people to do more. We have a little where do I go from there? And at code.org, we have full ranges of curriculum, which most people don't know about us. They assume we are the Hour of Code place, which we are, but we also have a complete elementary school curriculum. We have a complete middle school curriculum, and we have a high school AP curriculum. All of those things can be accessed through code.org/educate. We also have links to amazing other opportunities. If you go to hourofcode.com/beyond, it will take you to a place where you can find other curriculum that will take you farther than just an hour. And Scratch is definitely one of those. We love Scratch at code.org. And I think if you were to browse our entire site, we would have dozens of links back to various Scratch activities. There's robotics and littleBits for sure. We have there are a ton of ways to then bring this to your classroom, make a really fulfilling experience, and make sure that it's age appropriate. And I think that's it for me.
Kiki, thank you so much. That was amazing. And so now we're going to pass it off to Laura Peter, who is from Scratch Ed at the Harvard Graduate School of Education. So Laura, if you can take the control now and take it away.
Great. Hi, I'm Laura. I'm a member of the Scratch Ed team at the Harvard Graduate School of Education, and today I'm going to share some of the resources that we offer for educators and give you a sneak peek at what we have planned for CS Ed Week and Hour of Code. I'd also like to mention that before I joined the Scratch Ed team, I taught middle school students for 6 years and participated in Hour of Code and beyond with my students, so I'm especially excited to join this call today. I know many of you have heard of Scratch or have experience with Scratch, but for those of you who haven't, I wanted to give you a quick bit of information about both Scratch and the work we do here on the Scratch Ed team. So Scratch is a free programming environment. It enables young people to create their own interactive media, including things like stories, games, and animations. On Scratch, you build projects by snapping blocks together, just as you might snap a Lego brick together in the physical world. Scratch actually just celebrated its 10th anniversary and has over 26 million projects shared with over 22 million users registered. Here at Scratch Ed, we're based at the Harvard Graduate School of Education, and we work to support Scratch educators, which are teachers who want to support computational creativity in the classroom. We hope to support educators who are helping learners to imagine, program, and share with Scratch. Scratch educators are currently supporting students in the creation of projects ranging from everything from this in-depth depiction of the water cycle to student-generated quizzes on Greek mythology. I really love the Percy Jackson reference in this one. Scratch is being used in elementary, middle, and high school classrooms and can be used in any curricular area or setting. So we often hear from teachers, great, I'm on board. I'd like to do creative computing with Scratch in my classroom, but how do I help kids? I don't know how to do this. How do I get started? So in response, we designed and developed a set of resources for educators. I'm going to elaborate on 3 of the resources we offer today, but we offer many more on our website as well. The 3 I'm going to speak about today are the Creative Computing Guide, the Scratch Ed Online Community, and Scratch Educator Meetups. So the first resource I'd like to show you is the Creative Computing Curriculum. This is a resource that when I was teaching, I pretty much died of happiness when I encountered because it was everything I was looking for at the time. It's a collection of ideas, strategies, and lesson plans for an introductory creative computing experience. The activities in this guide were designed to foster familiarity with computational creativity, as well as increase fluency with computational thinking. The link on this screen is also included in some of the documents that we've given Christine and littleBits, so you can find it in other places, but you can download it for free as a PDF or a PowerPoint from that link. This is a peek into one of the activities from the guide. It's full of super helpful things for educators. It includes everything from activity ideas to student handouts to links to example projects and reflection prompts. It's organized into 7 units and includes things like getting started, animations, stories, games, and many educators use it as a full semester long computing course, but many other educators also use it as integrated into their curricular area. So I loved using the Getting Started unit when I was teaching and then remixing the rest of the activities to incorporate into my 6th grade math content. Okay, great, you've downloaded the guide. Now you might be wondering, well, can the creative computing work for my specific subject area? Where can I find more inspiration? Are there other educators using Scratch with students at the same grade level as me? So in response to these questions and more, we designed and developed a space for educators online called the Scratch Ed Online Community. It's a place where teachers can share stories, exchange resources, ask questions, and connect with other educators. I wanted to specifically highlight the resources section of the Scratch Ed website on this call. So let's say you're looking for a specific lesson plan ideas or a specific resource, like maybe a printout of the Scratch blocks. If you check out the resources section, you'll find all of these and more. And as you can see on our screen here, there's many other resources that the Scratch Ed team publishes, such as Scratch across every subject, which highlights ideas for integrating Scratch into any content area classroom. In that resources section, you'll find ideas for units and lesson topics, and even specific lesson plans for Hour of Code. So what you see on the screen here is actually from my 6th grade classroom. It's something I adapted from a resource I found on Scratch Ed, specifically for Hour of Code, that helped introduce my students to concepts of the coordinate plane and Scratch. And if you're familiar with Scratch, there's also lots of tips and example projects for extending beyond the basics, such as the string art project that uses the pen tool and incorporates both math and visual art. Scratch Ed recently celebrated its 8th birthday, and we have over 24,000 registered members and almost 1,000 resources just for educators. Okay, so you've participated in the online community, you've downloaded the guide, but you want to meet people in person who can help you. You have questions, you're looking for a community of people who you can work with. So Scratch Ed meetups are what we designed to help that question. They're gatherings of Scratch educators who want to learn with and from each other, share ideas, strategies for supporting computational creativity. They're participatory professional learning experiences. Scratch Ed meetups are opportunities for teachers to have hands-on experience with Scratch. And unlike typical conferences or professional development, where the schedule is predetermined, a Scratch Ed meetup is collaboratively constructed by the people in the room. So this is based on the passions, interests, and questions that you as an educator bring. So for example, when I finished my Hour of Code geometry lesson, I really wanted to find other ways to integrate Scratch into my 6th grade math classroom. I brought this idea to a meetup, I wrote it on a Post-it, and a session was designed just around the topic that I had suggested. That day I left with pages of notes and ideas that I later used in my classroom and have now been able to share with other people as well. Personally, I find Scratch Ed meetups to be incredibly exciting and dynamic. There are currently over 1,300 registered meetup participants, and there are 24 sites across 4 countries. You can find a full list of the meetup locations on our website, scratched.gse.harvard.edu. So you can access all 3 of the resources that I just shared and much more at our homepage. And like I said, we've provided Christine with that handout that includes these links as well. So for CS Ed Week and Hour of Code, the Scratch Ed team specifically focuses our efforts on teacher learning. This means we're going to be creating extra opportunities for teachers to expand and reflect on their practice, as well as connect with other Scratch educators online. We'll be hosting synchronous events where teachers gather online at the same time to collaborate and ask questions, and we'll also be sharing new resources for teachers throughout the week. We'll be unrolling these events daily beginning on December 4th, so please stay tuned and follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram to learn more and catch up with us on CS Ed Week. So that concludes our portion of the event. I'm really excited for CS Ed Week, and I'm going to pass it back off to Christine.
Laura, thank you so much. That was really, really inspiring, and it's good to hear about the online and offline options for people who are interested in getting started and not just doing an hour of code, but building a community of people that they can rely on. So with that, we're going to pass it off to John Samuelson. He is the innovation strategist for Beaverton School District, and he'll be talking about what he's doing in his district and school this year. So John, take it away.
Okay, thanks a lot. I appreciate it. It's interesting because I'm watching these great sessions and I'm like, boy, I think I know there's a reason for this, because I kind of can tie everything together a little bit, because I can give you a little bit of the teacher side and the teacher training that we were just talking about at Scratch meetups. And then I can also give you the student side a little bit too, because I like to go in, and I'm an innovation strategist. And if you want to connect with me, please follow me on Twitter. You can ask me any question, anything, but I am what they call on the West Coast a TOSA, which stands for teacher out at Starbucks all the time. So what I like to do is just sit around and try and direct people and have, you know, a good coffee and things like that. But really it stands for teacher on special assignment. I remember I've been teaching for about 20 years in the classroom. And I remember how I kind of used to feel about TOSAs. I'm still kind of embarrassed to be a teacher on special assignment, but this is kind of what you picture. But I like to go in, and in fact, I'll give you, I used Scratch Junior today to huge success in a classroom, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. But I'm the kind of person who likes to go in and teach the lessons. So I get the advantage of going in to teach the lessons and kind of share different fun things. So I think I was kind of going back to Kiki and what she said about, you know, the hour of code, and I think it's done a great job getting people aware of coding and computer science. But then we just had Digital Citizenship Week, and so I'm like, why is it just Digital Citizenship Week? Why is it just hour of code? And there's no reason that it should be. The reason is it makes you aware of these things, but really digital citizenship is taught even today when I was in a classroom, it's taught every single lesson. You remind them of little things, and if kids make mistakes, you tell them, you give them the instruction on citizenship and what to do and different things as it comes up, and it's more effective that way, I think. So Hour of Code, I think, has done a really good job of making people aware, but really there's, like Kiki said, there's no reason you can't just continue this. So that's kind of what I'm going to talk about, some easy strategies to continue teaching coding after Hour of Code. So, oh, why, I should have switched that slide earlier. But so I feel like there are ways where you can embed coding throughout the school year, just in assignments. And though I'm not the coding expert at all, I love to dabble, I love to try things. And I feel like that's your first step, is if you kind of just dip your toe in the water a little bit and do some of the code.org lessons with the students, I feel like this is a good way to learn. But I'm going to share a site right now that I feel like is one of the best ways that I learned to find the time to do this in a regular school day. And that was with a site called Code Campus. And what Code Campus has, I would suggest that you all, it's a free resource, and they use Scratch to kind of just go through, and it's very simple. You open up a window, and there's very slow talking videos for people like me so that I can understand it and then rewind the video. But it's a very good online way of teaching yourself a little bit of Scratch, so that if you feel overwhelmed because you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to teach these kids coding and I don't know how to do it, I'm not sure. You don't have to feel that way, because if you just take a few, even just a few of the lessons on Code Campus, you'll see that it's not that hard to do, and that you can actually go through, and it was really amazing, and it opened my eyes a lot to different ways that if I was a teacher that I would try to use Code Campus. So I'm going to share some of the things I learned from, I of course did all the lessons in Code Campus. I think there's 10 different lessons. I did them all in like 3 or 4 hours, and just sat there and just, I just couldn't believe that it was a resource that was available that was free and online, but it's really good. So one of the things I learned is that you just really have to give it a try, and coding doesn't take a lot of time to learn, especially block coding. I'm an elementary teacher, so I think that block coding is the way to start with Scratch and all those different things. Scratch Junior is great for K through 2, and that's where we try and get our kids started in our school district. And the thing that I learned was, I would just think, oh yeah, coding, it's going to be for, I could maybe put a little bit in math, or maybe I can put a little bit in my science class or whatever. But really what Code Campus showed me is you can create a Mad Lib, and some of the, even just some of the things that Laura just showed, I was like, wow, that's really cool. And so you can do things in language arts that are language arts friendly, and you can even do things that are mapping and social studies and all those different things. I would have had no idea that you can make a Mad Lib in Scratch, and then they teach you how to do it, and it's incredible. And so then it just gives you a bunch of different ideas then. So then, right, it's like you have kind of like the knowledge starts to kind of pour in, and you can think about, oh yeah, I could take this lesson and then maybe modify it for my curriculum and go this way with it. And it's really an interesting way to go. So it gave me a ton of ideas how to use coding. And I always thought that, like, I don't know, whenever we would do, I was like a 4th and 5th grade teacher. And what you do is you like, oh, okay, here, why don't you do this? You know, back in 2002 and 2003, you'd be like, ooh, PowerPoint. I'm going to have you, you know, and you were like, wow, PowerPoint, that's awesome. And now it's like Google Slides. You can have your kids do Google Slides. But really, you could code, you could have your kids demonstrate knowledge by coding a presentation that would take the place of Google Slides, and maybe at least have it there for an option, so that if those kids wanted to do that, then you can give student choice. And I think it would be great. So block coding, I've decided with Scratch isn't difficult. You just need to do it. And that's, I live in Beaverton. We have the Nike headquarters here. So I highlighted just do it, because sometimes you just have to put your fears aside and give it a try. My example is yesterday, I subscribe to all these different emails, and I get emails from all these different things, and it's great, but sometimes it can be like drinking from a fire hose. And I got the Minecraft one yesterday for, okay, it's Hour of Code, it's code.org. We've got a new Minecraft section. Let's go for it, right? And so I was like, okay, here we go. I'm going to go for it. So, I mean, just so you know, I wasn't doing this during the school day. I wasn't at Starbucks, and I wasn't, you know, I did it at 5 o'clock, so it was after work hours. But I was like, all right, I'm excited. I want to see what the new Minecraft is about. I want to test it out and see what ages it's going to be appropriate for. And so I went into the Minecraft one, and my first response was, boy, I wish I was around some kids, because I really don't know what's going on here. I was in the second lesson. I'm like, wait, what am I supposed to do? And then you kind of sit there for a little bit, and you make a mistake here and you make a mistake there. And I'm like, okay, so I want to pressurize and get over to get the diamond pickaxe over here. I can see what I wanted, but how are they expecting me to do that? And then you make mistakes, and then all of a sudden you learn. And I learned how to do it, and then I breezed right through it. And then I was like, okay, I understand now. And I feel like that's sometimes, as teachers, what we have a hard time doing is we have a hard, you want kids to succeed so bad. And I think that sometimes we always talk about, I think in the last webinar, we talked about like failure and things. And maybe it's not failure, but it's just like trying and retrying different things. I mean, it's like the code's not working. Okay, so let me test it out, and then let me debug the code. Okay, now, and then you get a little bit further and a little bit further, and then bam. And I think it's so much more rewarding for students that way. And it was a lot more rewarding for me, because, but I in the second lesson of the new Minecraft Hour of Code, I thought, oh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get through this. I need my kids to come home and help me real quick. So I feel like that's kind of the wonder of this one. And I think that that's sometimes, as a teacher, that's something you have a hard time with. Moving to the justevencode.org, I know that sometimes in my job, there can be things like, oh, the Wi-Fi is not working, or, oh, this technology is not working. And that can be a huge problem. And for people that have a hard time teaching with technology, or are having a hard time kickstarting themselves to kind of cut the cord and give it a shot, the bad technical problems can happen. I know this firsthand, because in the classroom I was just in today, I personally downloaded and touched each of the iPads and downloaded Scratch Junior last week so we could be set up for success. And then I hit the icon for Scratch Junior. It would pop up for 2 seconds, and then it totally went away. And I was like, oh, it just crashed. I did it 3 more times, and it crashed. So what did I do? Drum roll, please. I turned the iPad off and turned it back on again, and then it worked. So you have to, and if you don't know those fixes, technology can be frustrated. I just spent all this time downloading these things. So when you go through, I don't think that technology, oh, I have access to this many iPads, or I don't have computer lab time, or whatever. There are some really cool unplugged activities that are on code.org. This is my favorite one. And I won't play the video for you because you can watch it on your own time. But I feel like Move It, Move It's a good one where you're kind of directing the team. But I always did it. I kind of modified this one, and I call it Move It with the teacher, because you have the kids kind of code the teacher, and so then you turn yourself into the scratch cat, and you're the person that's coding. And it's a lot of fun it's a lot of fun for kids to sit there, and it's a lot of fun for the team. I always enjoyed it because kids could direct me around, and I would seriously, like, of course, be over dramatic and crash into things and whatever. But if that's where they guided me to, right? And so it gets them to understand the basic concepts of coding. So you don't even need anything. The unplugged activities are all there for you. And I think there's a lot of value in some of those. I went to Raspberry Pi Academy, and the first thing they did was an unplugged activity with the Raspberry Pi. So that was fun. I have a ton of resources. Like I said, if you follow me on Twitter, you can always just like direct message me or message me over Twitter or whatever. I have a ton of different things. So I used to be called, and I'm now embarrassed to admit this, but I used to be called iPad Sammy, and I built a pretty big Twitter following. And if you just have iPads, I have a list right there. If you go to bit.ly/code iPad, and you can get a list of like 26 or 27, some of them paid, some of them free, and they're just apps that you can use. And Scratch Junior is the best one if you're in K1 or 2. I mean, you could have any age kids do it, but it is really awesome for the K3 crowd, I think. So that is on there, and there's some different things. So if you ever needed some ideas, don't think that there aren't other teachers out there to help you. And so I'm going to quote Mitch Resnick real quick, because I fanboyed him at the ISTE conference. And learning to code means learning how to creative reason and think systematically and work collaboratively. So if you don't have enough iPads, let's say, I mean, when I listened to Mitch Resnick at the ISTE conference, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like they always want two people to even like a computer screen, and they kind of want people to work together and collaborate. And so you could do that with an iPad. You could have 3 people collaborate on a computer, or 3 people collaborate on an iPad, can borrow around. So I don't feel like don't let the technology or the lack of technology or things like that get in the way. You can do unplugged activities. It's great. I'm telling you, I'm almost now, with my code kits, I'm almost like I could book myself out and go in and teach coding lessons all the time. And so we just did one recently. So if you haven't tried out the littleBits code kit, there's all the cool pieces right there. That LED right up at the top right. Oh my gosh, that thing is incredible. And it's so much fun. And kids understand the coding right away when you do it. So I'm going to show you some pictures from the class that I was just in last week. I want to give a shout out to Robin Tanksley, teacher at Sexton Mountain Elementary School, for letting me come in and do this with her 3rd graders. She's an awesome teacher, and she could do this webinar as far as I'm concerned. So when we go through, we've been looking a lot at our littleBits that we have lately. And so it's a real simple kind of process for us. But what we do is we do the introduction, and then we do a little small build. We introduce them to the colors and the different things. We have even created slide decks that introduce, so that if teachers need them, we just Google Slides it on over to them, and they can, know that blue is power and all that stuff. And so then we go through and we kind of introduce them, and then we have them do like little things like turn on a fan, turn on a light, those kinds of things. And then with the coding kit, what is awesome is that there are step-by-step videos for the 4 main projects that you have. I've only made 2 of them so far. I made Hot Potato of Doom with these guys, and that's what they're making in that picture. And then we also made the famous code guitars, which are awesome. So when we go through, that's a solid build where they can watch the videos kind of like you would on Code Campus. And then we go in, and if they finish up, they can even start day 3 early, and then we start remixing the code. And you can see that they have a Chromebook right there, and the Chromebook's hooked to that orange code bit that she's working on right there, with just a little Bluetooth dongle that comes in the kit, so that you can actually just, send the code on over. And it's really kind of a cool thing to even talk about that kind of stuff with them. And they go, wow, that's so cool. And then the last day, we try and do some different things, and they can invent something if they really have an idea that they want to go on. We have some essential questions that we have that go with our littleBits kits, but we also are really trying to push like design thinking with, you know, elementary kids, and I have a kit of cards right here in front of me where we're pushing design thinking called mock-ups, but we're trying to get kids to understand that coding in the real world is, I have a problem, let's see how we can solve it. Can I invent something to solve that problem? And I think that that makes it a lot more real. You know, you make the real world connections and kids learn a lot better, I think. So here's some more pictures from kids doing stuff. You can see cool guy with the shades right there. And so it's just a lot of fun for them as they go through it. And there they are collaborating. There's 3 people to a kit. They're working on one Chromebook. They're working together. It's a really nice thing to watch. It really is. And my claim to fame is that I have my little red Milwaukee Tools power tool box that I put all the different colors in so that they can go, and I just kind of put them out like a buffet, and then they can grab their little bits from wherever they want. It's so much fun. And so I'm going to give you a couple quotes from teachers, because you kind of have to have a bigger space for this. We did the first time I did the code guitars, we did it in the maker space, and it was at a different school. And one of the teachers, they kept walking by and like looking in because it was in their library, and they said, I understand better how the makerspace works now and what I can do there with students. I thought, oh, okay, that's good, because really when you make the code guitars, you're cutting out cardboard. We had puff balls, we had markers, all the bells and whistles. We had all that stuff out. And then when we went through time, somebody, one of the aides said to me, it must be nice to have your job. You get to come in and do the cool projects and be the fun one. And I thought, yeah, no, I didn't disagree. I'm like, right, it is awesome, but it doesn't have to be that way. We can all be the fun one. I mean, it's not that hard. I'm not a, you know, I'm a teacher, but there are thousands and thousands of teachers that are better than I am. And so just remember that it just takes the ability to do a couple of things, and I hope I put them in these slides. Okay, here it is. Here it is. I did put it in the slides. It doesn't have to be that I just have to be the fun one. The fun one can be all of us, and you just need humility is really what you need. I was just in teaching a lesson the other day with a first grade, and the first grade teacher was like, I'm scared that the students are going to know more than I do. I said, they will, and that's not a bad thing. And she's like, yeah, I guess I just need to get over it. I said, yeah, just get over it and learn with them. It's fun. And I think that students will respect you more. You'll build better relationships with them if you don't try and seem like you do know everything. Nobody wants to see and know it all, right? I always tell them. And I will give you the story today real quick, and then I know I'm probably over my time, but I worked today with Scratch Junior. They were going to use robots today, and we had problems with some of the robots. So we went to our plan B, which was Scratch Junior. And we were working in a classroom that's called an SCC classroom. And I have a son that has autism too. And it was with his old teacher. And these were primary students. So it was K-3 autistic students. And they absolutely were engaged the whole time with Scratch Junior. And I just kind of gave them the little primer and then just let them explore. And oh my goodness, there were so many different things that I didn't know that they started to show me. And in fact, I tweeted out one video where we actually had a student learn how to like put their little circle in and then put their face in the camera so they could actually be in the Scratch Junior project. And we brought him up and we just had him beam to the Apple TV, and then we actually had him teach the class how to do it. And so I took a little video real quick. It's so cool. I mean, these are kids that have trouble communicating, but here they want to get up in front of people and show them what they learned. So it's powerful. We've had a really good time with that class. And I don't know, I just feel like good things will happen. You just kind of have to be not afraid to, you know, sometimes make mistakes, and sometimes things will mess up, but I don't know. I think the good outweighs like the bad sometimes. And to quote, I'll finish with a quote, to quote Kendrick Lamar, make sure you are humble. And that's all from me.
That is a great way to end that, John. Thank you so much. We've had some really, really great questions come in. So I'm just going to kick us off. One of the questions, and I would like all three of our panelists to answer this. And we'll start with John. Several questions came in about getting others on board, not necessarily students, but other teachers, other educators. How do you give them the bug, get them excited, not just about Hour of Code, but coding in general. So, John, since this is part of your job, I'd love to hear from you first about how you get other teachers on board with you and some other strategies that you can give to our audience members today.
Sure. One of the, I'll keep quoting rappers, by any means necessary. No, when we, it's a great question. A lot of times what we'll do is we will, I really try, and we have some computer lab teachers that are excellent in our school district. They're not certified teachers, but they do some great things in the computer lab. A lot of times I'll go in and teach lessons with them so I can hit all the different classes, just so I can have the teachers can kind of see me in there if I have a harder time getting times for them. But a lot of times, really, what's been most effective with this last one, we invited some teachers on their prep in just to come in and watch and see what we've been doing real quick. And they're like, huh. And even if they just take that 5 minutes just to come in and look and just kind of watch what you're doing, that's been pretty effective. It's just kind of like, I find a person that's a willing participant, I go in and teach the lesson, and if I don't find willing participants, I try and find other ways to get in there and teach. And the way I do it is by modeling the lessons and then letting the kids get excited, because I feel like if you let the kids get excited about it, it puts pressure on the teacher to kind of be like, maybe I should try this out a little bit. And kids love it. Kids love this stuff.
Kiki, I imagine with all the educators that you work with, this might be a question that comes up, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, it is. We have that problem of getting educators interested initially. Sometimes they just think it's too hard and they're frightened. And I think that John really handled that well in talking about using the humility. But then when you want to bring in like the superintendent or the principal and get them excited about it, it really is helpful. If you're a parent, it's helpful to talk to the teacher and have your child's teacher kind of go to bat for it, or at least say they're willing to try it. Also, there are a lot of great free professional development sessions all around the country that a teacher or an educator of any kind, an administrator, can go to and really find out what's up. And a lot of these professional development sessions are completely free and happen across the country. And so just to get someone to go and experience it for themselves is huge. There are also a lot of great videos right now. I know code.org puts out a few, Google puts out a few about the importance of computer science. And so sending some of those videos along and really being persistent about it. And then there's just something to be said too for starting with after school, accepting that it might be hard to change everything immediately and get things right into the classroom, and being able to start with after school with volunteers who are excited and kids who are excited, and then get the administrators to see that it's a successful and really beneficial, viable option for everybody.
And Laura, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would definitely echo what both of our other presenters said, but one of the things that I was thinking about when you asked that question was my own experience in the classroom. And one thing that helped me specifically was showing some examples of how other teachers were integrating computing and creative computing across the curriculum. So I actually pulled up some of the resources that I found online of teachers doing this in a math classroom already, and how students could be learning these concepts while also learning creative computing concepts. That being said, as Kiki said, there are lots of free professional development opportunities. And what I often tell people is to bring your friend to a Scratch Ed meetup if there is one in your area. The meetups are super friendly for new people. And we often like to say that we work to create a low floor and a high ceiling, but also wide walls. So it's easy to get started, and there's an expansive range of things that you can do with Scratch, but also there are many different types of activities that you can do both in Scratch as well as how to incorporate it into your classroom. So I would encourage people to bring a friend to any of those free professional development opportunities in your area.
Yeah, and this kind of leads into the next question for me is, all of you at some point mentioned things besides coding, things like creativity and collaboration in particular, that coding isn't necessarily just a one-person activity. You collaborate with others, and I think that's an amazing effect of it. But somebody did have a question very specific about collaboration. When you have students working in groups together, how do you make sure, or how do you facilitate so that one person isn't doing all of the coding and the other person is doing all of the telling what to do? Or how do you create accountability within those sort of collaborative groups? And Laura, I'd like to start with you on this one.
Sure. In my own classroom, I worked on this in a few different ways. The first was I would actually physically set a timer and have students trade places. I didn't do that initially, though, because I did want students to have some experience. I think people learn in different ways. And personally, I like to observe and watch before I get started with something. So when we did start to introduce Scratch and creative computing in my classroom, we had students who were maybe more comfortable demonstrating a little bit at the beginning, or just helping their peers get comfortable and familiar with it. And then eventually we kind of moved into a more, I guess, accountable system where we did some pair programming and like timed students as they went through. And then I often encourage student buddies or student helpers if students do feel comfortable with specific functions or specific things in the program. And it's been really fun in my own classroom in the past to see which students kind of pop up in those situations, because it's not always the same students who might volunteer to be a buddy in the actual math content. So,
John, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, you know, I agree with that. I also think that you know, if I like to give them the freedom to kind of see where they are at first with collaboration, but we also like you can set the timer and do like you're the driver, you're the navigator, and use those kind of things. And if a person's having a really hard time collaborating, I might let them go off by themselves, but then I might actually, a lot of what we're trying to build is some capacity here too. So that if my job fades away next year, like there's somebody in place. And so a lot of times I like to train the students to kind of go down and then work with maybe a younger student if I can. And so I kind of let them go off on their own, but I give them the idea that, okay, you're going to have to bring in a younger student and help them a little bit too, so that if they need to work on their collaboration skills, they can do it that way a little bit in a little more helpful way.
And Kiki, I imagine this is a question you guys get as well.
Oh, absolutely. We are a huge proponent of working together, the collaboration at code.org, and being that nearly half of our curriculum is online, we face that question a lot. And we definitely, to echo what the other two have said, we really appreciate pair programming. We've got the navigator and driver where the driver is the one actually touching the keyboard and the navigator is the one reading all the instructions, looking out for the big problems. But it's super important that kids switch, or else they get used to one and they feel like they're no good at the other. And it's important that kids get both of those experiences. We tend, when we're working online, to keep it to 2 or 3 children per computer, 3 when necessary, and even then we make sure that the kids rotate who is driving and who is looking for problems. It's also really helpful when the teacher is taking an active role and walking around, not helping kids immediately, because that's actually harmful. It doesn't give kids the chance to struggle and really fight with things and come up with solutions on their own. But they need to keep their eye out more for, oh, this group isn't switching, or these two are off talking while the driver is driving. And when a navigator is truly looking at the code and looking for errors that might emerge, they're actually doing more to learn programming in that space where they're not in control than the driver might be by dragging out blocks. So both of those things are super effective. And another thing that we like to say in the elementary school space, at least, is really in this workspace, there is no such thing as cheating except for claiming someone else's work as your own. We highly recommend getting ideas from other people, talking to other people about what you did. Because if I, as a student, am able to look over and say, oh, here's my solution, here's what I did, here's why it works, then my learning is super enhanced. And then that other student that I'm explaining to, they have to be able to process that, take it back to their machine, and then enter it in. So all of those are very valid ways to learn, as long as a teacher we're comfortable with not having students come up with every answer from the beginning by themselves.
And with that, we are at the top of the hour. But before we go, I promised that 2 attendees would be winning a littleBits code kit, as you saw from John's presentation. And so if I could get a virtual drum roll, our winners today, thank you, John, I know that's you. Our winners today are Roberta Gibson and Eric Leitner. So congratulations to Roberta and Eric. I'll be following up very shortly.
Yay!
Yay, congrats, guys. This has been recorded. We'll be sending the recording out by tomorrow, as well as links to get all of the slides and the handouts from today. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you to our presenters, and have a wonderful, epic hour of code, December 4th through 10th, everybody. Take care.